Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zakka. Jacob, we're starting off with a piece of breaking news that's coming right through. The government of India has now issued a formal advisory for all Indians living in Ukraine, asking them to leave at the earliest. This is in light of the deteriorating security situation. It's also advised Indians intending to travel to Ukraine to postpone or avoid traveling to that country in light of the recent escalation in hostilities in Ukraine. Remember, when the war began earlier this year, India had to undertake a massive evacuation operation that lasted for weeks. A large number of them students who were studying in different colleges and universities across Ukraine. A large number of them had been brought back to India. But over the last few weeks and months, some of them had begun to make their way back to these colleges and universities, particularly medical facilities, medical colleges and institutions. But now, the latest advisory on the back of the deteriorating security situation. Abhishek Jha has more details on this from the MEA. Abhishek, why this advisory and why now?
So, Zakka, clearly there are two reasons at least for which this advisory has been issued. We have seen a week ago, MEA has issued advisory where it has asked Indians not to travel if it is not required to Ukraine. But in the last 2 weeks, we have seen Russian missiles and rockets pounding major cities of Ukraine, including the capital city of Kyiv. This has not been the case in the past few months, and in the, excluding the initial few weeks of war, where Kyiv was also targeted. And this time, again, in the last 2 weeks, we have seen continuous pounding of bombs on Ukrainian city of Kyiv and other major cities, and also civilian infrastructures are being targeted. In that scenario, it looks like now the war is being escalated, where civilian infrastructure, major portion of the city and civic bodies and the buildings, colleges, they are also being targeted. And those students who have started to go back to Ukraine, considering that the danger of their life has scaled down, they are again being warned that it is not the right time, and in the escalating situation, they should come back as soon as possible for whatever or whichever mean they can find. They should immediately leave that country because the escalatory nature of the war is moving dangerous.
Abhishek, is this advisory by the government of India, by the embassy in fact there in Kiev, also on the back of an understanding or an assessment that this war is going to take a more deadlier turn in the next few days and weeks?
Of course, in the last advisory that was issued by the Indian embassy, it has clearly said that those who are not in Ukraine need not to come to Ukraine for any, unless it is required urgently. And also those who are in Ukraine, they should be in regular touch with the embassy officials so that in case of urgency or in case of any untoward situation, they should be called back or contacted and can be rescued safely. Because we have a very nightmarish experience and memory of the last time when about 20,000 students were stuck in Ukraine, and Prime Minister Modi had to intervene. He called Ukrainian President Zelensky and Russian President Putin, and then a window of few hours was created where the shellings were stopped and India could rescue its students very safely from those conflict-ridden regions. So that situation should not come back again. To avoid such situation, Indians have been asked to leave Ukraine as soon as possible.
All right, Abhishek, we'll leave it at that. Abhishek Jha there with more details of this latest advisory, this one put out by the Indian mission in Kiev, asking those few Indians who are still remaining there or who may have gone back, considering in the last few months how the situation, particularly in Kiev and other cities, had improved. But in the last couple of weeks or so, since that Crimea bridge attack, it has gotten far worse. And now this advisory for all Indian nationals to leave Ukraine as soon as possible. Meanwhile, our big focus here on Brass Tacks this evening, the Congress party has got itself a new president in 80-year-old Mallikarjun Kharge, the first non-Gandhi in 24 years to helm the grand old party. When the votes got finally counted, Mr. Kharge got 7,897 votes compared to Shashi Tharoor's 1,072. It was a comprehensive win for the strongman from Gulbarga, but it does raise a very pertinent question. Will Mr. Kharge not be seen as a proxy for 10 Janpath? Can he truly usher in the change that the Congress party needs? And is this the Congress party's attempt to try and say that on the one hand they did have intra-party elections, but a favoured candidate is still running the show?
This image perhaps sums up Congress's elections for a new president. A non-Gandhi will be heading the party after 24 years, but it's the Gandhis who still rule the roost. It was a walkover for 80-year-old Mallikarjun Kharge, who was seen as the approved candidate. He beat rival Shashi Tharoor by more than 80% of the votes. But even before the results were out, his predecessor Rahul Gandhi had already declared him the winner.
I'm very clear as far as my role is concerned. The president will decide what my role is and how I am to be deployed. That you have to ask Kharge ji and Sonia Gandhi ji.
Kharge is the first non-Gandhi to head the Congress party in 24 years. Sonia Gandhi, who has been the interim president for the last 3 years, called on Kharge to congratulate him.
आज जब डेमोक्रेसी खतरे में है, संविधान पर हमला बोला जा रहा है और हर इंस्टीट्यूशन को तोड़ा जा रहा है, तो कांग्रेस पार्टी ने राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल इलेक्शंस करवाकर देश की डेमोक्रेसी को मजबूत करने का एग्जाम्पल पेश किया।
His rival Shashi Tharoor built his campaign around change, but lost along expected lines, securing only around 1,000 votes. Before the results, he had alleged the polls were rigged.
In a cricketing analogy, that the fact is that when you find yourself playing a match on an uneven pitch and the ball bounces and turns awkwardly, you still have to bat. And I have been batting. What happened has happened. We have put forward the best account of ourselves that we could, and clearly it wasn't good enough to carry the day.
Kharge, who's one of the closest aides of the Gandhis, had filed his nomination at the 11th hour after one-time frontrunner Ashok Gehlot had pulled out of the race. Today, the Congress party is hailing a democratic election, but the odds were always stacked against Tharoor.
Dr. Tharoor was not disgraced. He got respect. He did respectably well. But I think, I don't think even Dr. Tharoor expected to win. I don't think actually he expected to win. He was fighting to do a good show, and he put up a good show.
While Kharge has promised reforms in the party, will he simply be a proxy? Will there be a parallel power center of the Gandhis who will be calling the shots?
All right, let's bring in our full panel on the talking point this evening here on Tacks. Sanju Verma is BJP National Spokesperson, Shama Mohammed, Spokesperson of the Congress Party, Professor Sanjay Kumar with CSDS, Advaita Kala, author and political analyst, and Radhika Ramseshan, senior journalist, also on the broadcast this evening. Shama Mohammed, let me start with you first. Yes, this was an internal matter of your party, and finally Mr. Kharge has prevailed by a large majority, 7,000 plus votes to Mr. Tharoor's 1,000 plus votes. Why should, though, the people of India be convinced that an 80-year-old Mr. Kharge is the person who is going to usher in the much-needed reform and change in your party?
Zakka, why should they not, is the question I'm going to ask you. Now, you have no idea what is Mr. Kharge's legacy. He's a 9 times MLA, he's won Lok Sabha twice, he's a Rajya Sabha member, former PCC president of Karnataka, former leader of opposition Karnataka, leader of opposition Lok Sabha, leader of opposition Rajya Sabha. I can go on. Where did he come from? From the block level. He's gone up the ranks of the Congress party by working hard, by working at the organizational level. So why should you sideline somebody who has massive experience just because of age? I don't agree on that.
No, Shama, he has an impressive resume. Nobody is taking away from his contributions to the Congress party over the last many years. The question I asked you is, why is he a bet for the future? The past is obviously not going to rescue your party. The future is.
First and foremost, Zakka, you must congratulate us for holding a transparent election in our party for the party president. The Bharatiya Janata Party just appoints their president. They have increased the term of Mr. Nadda for another 1.5 years till the 2024 election. We have had a transparent election where the head of the election committee, Mr. Mistry, gave press conferences every other day or every week saying this is what's going to happen, this is happening. So there were 2 candidates and one of them has won through an internal election where there were more than 9,000 delegates. So what is wrong if the party, our party people choose? We have our right to choose
like
our
I said,
president.
nobody has any quibble with whoever your party has chosen. You're still not getting my question or refusing to answer it as to why Mr. Kharge should be the one for the future. But let me ask Sanju Verma the point that Shama has been asking, other Congress spokespersons have been asking in previous discussions as well. as to why should the BJP give lessons to the Congress in intra-party elections. Who was the last president of your party who was elected? Almost all of them are selected.
Okay, Zakka, first and foremost, let me take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge. The BJP has always called for a constructive opposition, and where I agree with Shama is that Mr. Kharge has had, tremendous amount of experience with him, which needs no introduction. Having said all this, I completely disagree and very strongly refute these allegations about the BJP president being selected and not elected. Maybe people are not aware of the nuances, and I don't blame them for making allegations without doing their homework. Under Section 19 and Section 21 of the BJP's constitution, I would urge people to read it if they care to, know the truth. Section 19 and 21 of the BJP constitution clearly says that a party president A has to be at least a bona fide member of the party for 15 long years. B, he should have the support of 50%, at least 50% of the MLAs of 5 states, BJP MLAs of 5 states. The third important criteria is that the president, whether it is his appointment or his extension, that should be supported and endorsed by 20 members of the BJP Central Election Committee and the BJP
Sanju, the question is, Sanju, the question is, when Mr. Nadda got elected the first time, who was his opponent? Was there an election? That's the question.
Let me come to that, Zakka. That's a very interesting. Let me please, Shama, I did not interrupt you. Let me come to this. First and foremost, I was gracious, and I think that goes without saying. Mallikarjun Kharge, I hope he has a fruitful tenure going forward. But let's not kid ourselves. Let the truth be told. In its 137-year-old history, the Congress has had only 12 non-Gandhis as their presidents, and even one out of these 12 did not complete his or her entire term. Point number one. Point number two, while you may have this debate about elected versus selected, I think anyone with an iota of political common sense knows that when it was Amit Shah who was the BJP president, nobody knew that JP Nadda would be his successor. When Rajnath Singh was the president, nobody knew Amit Shah would be his successor. When Venkaiah Naidu was the president, nobody knew LK Advani would be his successor. And nobody knew that LK Advani would be the successor to Jan Krishnamurthy. So as I always say, where BJP scores is that BJP's presidents are elected or selected, whatever you may wish to call it, based on merit. Meritocracy is the DNA of the BJP.
Okay, let me now go to the others as well. Advaita Kala, the point that many independent observers are also suggesting is that the Congress had a real opportunity here to show that there was an internal election, an election in which the Gandhis did not back any candidate, and whoever was the best person, he or she won. With Mr. Kharge's victory, and call it what you want, official, unofficial candidate or unofficial, official candidate, the fact remains that Mr. Kharge's biggest sort of stumbling block will be to at least dent the image that he's a 10J candidate, that he's a candidate of the Gandhis, that he's not going to do anything that the Gandhis don't want him to do. How do you believe, first of all, that this was a missed opportunity for the Congress? And B, do you think that Mr. Kharge can actually do stuff in the Congress party which will leave his own stamp?
Well, Zakka, I mean, first of all, we've done enough exit polls together to know that, if everyone get it right, but this was one election where we all got it right. We knew Mr. Kharge was going to be Congress president. And in fact, Rahul Gandhi kind of announced that even before the official polling results were out. So I think, I've said this before, this was an opportunity for the Congress, of course, to have an internal party elections as per the constitution, and the BJP does it as per their constitution. They may disagree with each other's methods, but they follow their own constitutions. Now, this was an opportunity for the Congress to have a conversation with the public at large. And I feel that this was where the missed opportunity has been. Because unfortunately, and I think your package really summed it up
perfectly. There was no level playing field. It was very clear that Mr. Kharge was the Gandhi's candidate, and he was being backed by the establishment. There were incidents like Dr. Tharoor didn't even have PCC presidents wanting to meet him when he went out to campaign. There was earlier today there were reports of election rigging. So it was very, very obvious to the casual observer even that this was definitely an election where the winning candidate was someone who was anointed and appointed and not necessarily elected. Now, this doesn't take away from Mr. Kharge's experience or any of those things that Shama kind of listed out at the beginning of this show. Of course, he's had a long, storied career. But remember, as far as the public is concerned, as far as our observers are concerned, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh also, I'm a world-renowned economist, and how compromised he was so often in office. Rahul Gandhi brought up that ordinance, for example, when he was the Prime Minister. So there is this understanding and this expectation from the general public that it's going to be the same as always. And Mr. Kharge is really the man at the moment because the Gandhis want him to be there.
Okay. I also want to ask Radhika Ramseshan, the two instances that Advaita pointed to. One, Mr. Tharoor going to meet some of these PCC presidents and some of them not giving him the time of day. And in fact, he mentioned that in a press conference. And today at the fag end, his campaign manager saying that they have doubts about the process. There were a couple of state units where ballots reached late and so on and so forth, basically raising questions on the electoral process. Does that sort of cure the pitch about the nature of this election itself, or does it really not matter? Because at the end of the day, like we've all been saying, the unofficial official candidate won, which was what was expected all along.
No, Zakka, it matters because these elections were billed as a major initiative, as a major step towards reforming the organization from within. I mean, that was the pitch that the Congress tried to set, and I believe that it fell far short of expectations. And I'm sure many Congress persons are going to share the same view privately. I mean, now why would a PCC president not come and meet Shashi Tharoor? Obviously, there was some kind of a message, covert, you can call it, tangential, you can call it, beamed from the top. And that message was received very well. They were very quick to receive these messages from the top as to who's, as to who was blessed by the high command. The high command still exists. Now, we just have to see how it plays out in future. But the fact that Mr. Tharoor was not received by PCC chiefs and other functionaries in a few states, the fact that that there were allegations of the process being kind of mucked up in a state like Uttar Pradesh, where the Congress has not been in existence for the past so many years, but they suddenly seem to have got animated on the day of polling. So, and these were made by allegations were made by Salman Soz, sort of a serious voice within the party. So we have to take these charges seriously. And therefore, I would say that the process, which was supposed to be transparent and honest and what have you, has got definitely marred by the incidents which took place towards the end of
Professor Sanjay Kumar, of course, Mr. Kharge's biggest challenge would be internal reforms, reviving the Congress organization in states like UP, etc., where it's almost moribund. But it's also going to be important to see how the Congress performs in the upcoming elections. Forget about 2024, but in the state elections in the run-up to 2024, you already have Gujarat and Himachal, where I'm not sure what kind of a contest the Congress is putting up against the BJP. And next year, you have Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh. In two of these states, the Congress is in power. Certainly in one of them, there seems to be a lot of in-house fighting, anti-incumbency. In the other, we're not sure what the situation is. And of course, in Madhya Pradesh, where they had a brief government under Kamal Nath and now the BJP is in power. How much will Mr. Kharge be judged by electoral results? Because let's face it, he is up against a 24/7 election winning machine called the BJP.
Zakka, I don't think that Kharge would be judged about his leadership based on the electoral performance of the Congress, because many of the Congress leaders, if you talk to the leaders, they also realize that Yes, leadership is a big issue within the Congress party, but the Congress is ailing with various other ailments. Only having Kharge as the party president is not going to help the party in winning elections. So you mentioned about the states. We should also not forget that Karnataka goes to poll next year. So I think the real test of Kharge is going to be what happens in Karnataka, not in Gujarat, not in Himachal, because these are the states which goes to poll soon after Kharge becomes is taking over as the party president. Yes, when it comes to next year, when it comes to say Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh, I think people by the time Kharge would have completed 1 year of presidency, and by the time there would be expectation within the Congress party leader that he should do something for the party. Maybe he should be campaigning and he should be able to gather more support base. But I think the real test of Mallikarjun Kharge is going to be how Congress performs in Karnataka, his own home state. And my own sense is that this is the state where Congress will get more attraction compared to what we have seen in the past, because at least he represents the state, he is from that state. We already know he is a tall leader of the state. So his ability of leadership, his legitimacy within the party will really be tested by how Congress performs in Karnataka.
Shama Mohammed, if the Congress needs to give the BJP even a fighting chance in 2024, it has to win a larger number of seats where it's a direct contest between the Congress and the BJP. There are about 180 odd seats in the last election in 2019. In about 160 out of those 180 seats, the BJP won. And many of these seats, whether you like it or not, are in northern India. They are in Rajasthan, they are in Chhattisgarh, they are in Madhya Pradesh. Of course, we've been saying this for decades now that the Congress party has to revive itself in Uttar Pradesh. Wouldn't it have been better if the future Congress president was from the Hindi heartland, somebody who was Hindi speaking, and not somebody who's from southern India, where anyway the Congress is in a relatively better position? And that's also the accusation against the Bharat Jodo Yatra. You're spending time, a disproportionate amount of time, in states where the Congress already has a decent chance, and not in states where you need to, pull up your socks and improve your organizational machinery if you need to take on the BJP.
Zakka, I really don't agree with you on this fact about the South Indian and North Indian. I mean, we have to stop this discrimination against the South Indians just because they can't speak Hindi. I totally disagree with that. I mean, it is about the quality of the person, how the person who is capable of the job, and that's how the selection process has to be. And then the person is elected. Number two, Sanju Verma was saying they have a constitution where 50% of the MLAs has to agree to who the next president has to be. Now, I want to ask Sanju, in your states like Gujarat, which MLA agreed for sudden change of Rupani to Patel? Who has agreed from Yedurappa to Bomai? I mean, they were just told that Mr. Yedurappa was called to Delhi and said, you know what, you are not going to be the next, you are not going to be the chief minister anymore, it's going to be Bomai. And we know how they changed 3 chief ministers in Uttarakhand. So they don't even have a voice. That's the problem with it. Now, another lady on, I couldn't see her name since I don't have a television in front of me. She mentioned about some allegations by Salman Soos. Now, what you have to understand in a party is there is democracy. Everybody they can have a say. And at that point, when there is a say, the election committee looks into it and corrects whatever the issue is. But you can that's what Rahul Gandhi said. There is democracy within our party. We can talk. Have you seen the democracy in our party? Now, just think about the Bharatiya Janata Party. Nobody can say a word against Mr. Modi. I mean, if there is anything said, they're removed from the parliamentary board, like Nitin Gadkari has been removed. Shivraj Singh Chauhan has been removed.
May I please?
That is the problem there. There is democracy, and here there are... No, wait. There are ministers who are just puppets. No, I'm sorry, I did not interrupt you, Zakka. This is not that. So ministers which are puppets, the PMO does everything. And here is a party where one has to be congratulated. There is clear and transparent democracy where we have elected the leader, our party president.
All right.
And
you've made your point.
Let
Sanju Verma respond now, please.
Let me finish. No.
And also, Shama, you've spoken for the last 2 minutes. Let's listen to the others as well, please. Thank you. Sanju Verma. Thank you, Shama. Thank you. Shama, thank you. Sanju Verma, please. Yes.
May I?
Yes, let's.
Zakka, this is not done.
Yeah.
May I? Thank you. Zakka, first and foremost, I would like to thank Shama for spending so much time on saying how BJP chief ministers were changed, but no thank you. The fact is, in a democracy, and electoral democracy at that. What is necessary is that you need to win elections. If you don't win elections, how are you even going to implement the vision that you have? And before the Congress the Chief Minister changed, the fact is, after changing 3 chief ministers, we still managed to get more than 40% share and 47 MLAs. And it's the first time in 27 years that the same party came back to power with an even bigger majority. So there is something clearly working for the BJP. And before the Congress gives a bhashan on political morality to BJP, Zakka, we all know in Rajasthan, it is Ashok Gehlot versus Sachin Pilot. In Chhattisgarh, it is Bhupesh Baghel versus T.S. Singhdeo. In Maharashtra, it is Prithviraj Chauhan versus Milind Deora. It is Milind Deora versus Nana Patole. And the fact is, Zakka, I will end by saying one thing. Did you notice the statement given by Shashi Tharoor 3 hours back to ANI? He says that I had not expected business as usual. This election was meant for change, Zakka, and not for continuity.
Cannot go on, Zakka.
But if some people wanted continuity, so be it.
Okay.
Shashi Tharoor has clearly said this is a rigged
Zakka,
election.
I want to say one thing.
Shashi Tharoor has said this is a rigged election.
Zakka, Shashi Tharoor never said that. Shashi Tharoor never used the word Zakka. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Shashi Tharoor never said that.
Read his statement.
Shashi Tharoor never said that.
Okay, I want to pull out. I want to pull out from both the spokespersons. Let me go to Advaita Kala. Again, Advaita, you know, yes, like I said to Shama, no one's taking away from Mr. Kharge's resume. He has a stellar resume. He's been in public life for the last 5 or 6 decades now. No one's taking that away from him. The issue, though, is the Congress party did this, I mean, this symbolism exercise, if I can use that phrase, with having a Dalit leader in Mr. Charanjit Channi in Punjab. They hailed it as a big breakthrough, having the first Dalit Sikh chief minister in Punjab, and ultimately, electorally, it failed. Today, Mr. Channi is and also ran in Punjab politics. Why should we believe that the Dalit president of the Congress party is so full of symbolism that it will actually help turn a critical vote bank for the Congress party, which is the Dalit community?
No, I think that's not really going to work, frankly. And you know, one wishes Mr. Kharge well. He's in his 80s, and this is a huge task to revive this party. And hope he's up for the job. But one suspects at this point of time, yet again, with these elections coming up and more elections coming next year and then 2024, is it going to be a situation where they found a fall guy when they don't deliver on those elections in the way that a political party is expected to? I think there is a suspicion of that right now. And I think the only way to silence critics, people like us who are raising these points, is to go out there and win elections. And I don't think you can take a pass on Gujarat and Himachal. Maybe Mr. Kharge can to a certain extent, but not the Congress. I mean, these are states with BJP in governments. So you cannot say that, these don't matter. They have to win every election. And if they don't reverse that trend, I think it's going to come across as them just having found a new fall guy and the Gandhis being protected.
No, so also in the run-up to 24, Radhika Ramaseshan, Mr. Kharge will also have to be the chief interlocutor on behalf of the Congress party in dealing with other stalwart opposition leaders, whether it's a Mamata Banerjee or a Sharad Pawar or a Nitish Kumar. Will they be happy dealing with Mr. Kharge? Will Mr. Kharge be seen as an equal at a time when, like I said, the popular perception, and this is going to be his biggest challenge, is that he is being controlled by 10 Janpath?
Yeah, Zakka, look, the leaders that you mentioned, the regional satraps, they are unwilling to do business with the Congress, period, under the Gandhis, because they don't see the Congress as a winning proposition. Therefore, the Congress has lost its kind of credibility, its strength to lead the opposition. And the events of the recent past clearly demonstrate that each of these regional satraps has sprouted national wings elections and is ready to take on the opposition, the role of the leader of an opposition coalition, whether it is Mamata Banerjee, Nitish Kumar, KCR, or even Arvind Kejriwal. So the point is that if they have to do business with the Congress, I think they would still like to talk to Sonia Gandhi, who still has credibility in the Congress spectrum. With Rahul, I'm not sure. Okay. And with Mallikarjun Kharge, maybe a party in Karnataka, which is namely the JDS, might want to speak to him. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, I do not see Mr. Kharge emerging as a national interlocutor.
Okay,
it is not fair to ground Mr. Kharge in Karnataka. Sure. Let me just quickly finish. Yeah. He is heading the Congress party. Therefore, he has to project himself as a pan-Indian leader, and that is a long haul for him.
Okay. No, Shama, please, you also have to appreciate
Zakka,
there are 5 other panelists. One second. If there are panelists who differ with your party and your position, I'm sorry. No, it's not a monologue. I'm going one by one. I'm sorry, Dr. Shama Mohammed. I don't need to face these baseless accusations. I have gone turn by turn. Each panelist has got his or her time. Sorry, I'm pulling the fader down. I'm giving Professor Sanjay Kumar the final word. The final word, Sanjay Kumar, and this is the moot question. If the Congress party needs to start winning elections, and everybody agrees, Mr. Kharge will have to start showing results, and whether you like it or not, in an electoral democracy, in a parliamentary democracy, election winning has become, at least in the last 7-8 years, since the BJP came to power, since Mr. Modi came to power, winning elections has become a barometer of whether your party is relevant, whether voters are buying your message. The fact remains that as far as the state elections are concerned, Mr. Kharge has his task cut out. Whether he will be able to turn around Gujarat and Himachal, we don't know. But in these straight fights, where it is 160, 170 seats between BJP, Congress direct fights, does the Congress have the narrative, the story to try and win at least a few more than 20 or 30 of those direct fights with the BJP? And most importantly, can it appeal to the younger voters to whom Mr. Modi has sold a story and they seem to have voted for him in large numbers, both in 14 and 19? And most importantly, can he also bring back voters who have gone away from the Congress party, either to the BJP or to regional parties, as the case may be?
I think the task for the Congress is as tough as the task for me. You have laid down several propositions. What can Congress do in your 1-minute questions? I think the first question you said, winning election is the barometer for the last 7-8 years. Why Zakka only 5-7 years? I think winning election is the barometer for judging the success of the political party since the very beginning. If you don't win elections, you become irrelevant slowly and gradually. So winning election is important, whether we like it or not. How you win election, that's a separate question. We can debate on that, whether the elections were contested in an ethical manner or not. Second, various sections you mentioned, whether Mr. Kharge will be able to win back those sections of voters who have a strong leaning in favor of BJP, courtesy Prime Minister Modi, because they have all got attracted towards Prime Minister Modi. Young voters have got attracted towards Narendra Modi more in 2014 compared to 2019. Yes, there are anxieties about unemployment, poverty, price rise, but I think despite this, there is still a hope among the young voters that who is best suited to solve the problem. And I think still a lot of youngsters, though they are a little worried about growing unemployment, but they still have faith in Prime Minister Narendra Modi, not so in BJP, but more so in Prime Minister Modi. So if there is a contest in the 2024 election, which is likely to be there, between Modi on one side and whosoever is propped up as the opposition candidate, or if there is no opposition candidate, but BJP will project Narendra Modi as the chief prime ministerial candidate, and when Modi is on one side, I think all the sections which you mentioned, weaning away from BJP, who have already shifted their loyalty to BJP in a big way during last couple of years or during last 5 years, that's going to be very, very difficult task for Mr. Kharge.
Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I want to thank Professor Sanjay Kumar, Radhika Ramseshan, Advaita Kala, Shama Mohammed and Sanju Verma for joining us. I want to move on to a piece of breaking news that's coming in, and this is big. This is from the UK, where Suella Braverman, who is the Home Secretary of the United Kingdom, has resigned. This is now adding further turmoil to Prime Minister Liz Truss's government. Remember, she's barely been in office for the last month or so. And Suella Braverman, controversial Home Secretary, has resigned. And this, of course, is adding to turmoil because, remember, just a few days ago, Kwasi Kwarteng, who was the Chancellor of the Exchequer, was asked to step down. He, of course, quit and made way for Jeremy Hunt. So this turmoil, this political turmoil continuing ever since Liz Truss assumed office. She had a tough time today in Parliament defending her government's record. Let me now go across to Sanjay Suri. So any particular reason that's been given as to why Ms. Braverman has quit?
Well, we are told that the reason, as expected, is not a difference over policy, but because there has been an issue of a personal misdemeanor. We are told that she broke the ministerial code, that she was confronted with this, that she accepted this, and has resigned on that basis. The question exactly, of course, is what she did. We are still waiting to find out. We expect to do that very soon. But it is over a breach of the ministerial code that she was asked to hand in her resignation.
What does that mean? If you could explain to our viewers who are watching in India and around the world, is it some kind of financial misdemeanor? Is it some personal misdemeanor that has now suddenly come to light? Do we know what this entails?
Well, it will entail principally a violation of the code that the Prime Minister of the day sets out for ministers to follow in public office. This need not be personal. It is a code that has been set out that requires all ministers to function by certain guidelines that are believed to be clean and transparent. If a minister falls from that, then that minister is said to have breached the code. There was an inquiry against the earlier Home Secretary, Preeti Patel, again, over allegations that she broke the ministerial code in the way she dealt with her colleagues. There was a senior official who had resigned, alleging bullying. That led to an inquiry over an alleged breach of the ministerial code. On that occasion, the Prime Minister, then Boris Johnson, backed Preeti Patel. On this occasion, the Prime Minister, Liz Truss, has accepted government's resignation.
Also, very quickly, she did have some controversial views, particularly on the question of immigration, she being the daughter of immigrants into England. If you could just revive the memories of our viewers on why her views on immigration particularly were controversial.
Well, she really said that she opposes the free trade agreement on the basis that that includes a provision for more professionals from India to come over to UK. She also said that a lot of illegal migrants are overstaying. The two are, of course, distinct issues, but she put them under an umbrella. She opposed the FTA, and she said so publicly in an interview to The Spectator magazine. Over this, she was reprimanded. She was made to reverse her views. She was silenced. In fact, her views were overridden, and the government has decided to go ahead with the negotiations disregarding what she had said. So clearly, she was seen as having spoken out of turn and silenced for it. Again, over the Leicester riots, she blamed recent Indian immigrants, and a lot of Indian organizations protested very strongly, and Indian organizations and Indians are very influential now within the Conservative Party. So there has been a groundswell of opposition to her within the Conservative Party that has had a very Indian spearhead.
So we have the letter of resignation of Suella Braverman. This is addressed to the Prime Minister, Liz Truss, where she writes, "Dear Prime Minister, it is with great regret that I'm choosing to tender my resignation. Earlier today, I sent an official document from my personal email to a trusted parliamentary colleague as part of policy engagement and with the aim of garnering support for government policy on migration. This constitutes a technical infringement of the rules. As you know, the document was a draft written ministerial statement about migration due for publication imminently. Much of it had already been briefed to MPs. Nevertheless, it's right for me to go. As soon as I realized my mistake, I rapidly reported on this on official channels and informed the Cabinet Secretary. As Home Secretary, I hold myself to the highest standards and my resignation is the right thing to do." So she sent an email, which was an official document from a personal email ID to a trusted parliamentary colleague, which would constitute a breach of the ministerial code. Is that why she's resigning, Sanjay?
Well, that is what she says, but this appears to be a very minor matter. There have been very many more serious violations of the ministerial code that have not led to resignations. This appears a very minor Westminster nicety that a communication was sent on her personal email. It appears that this was made the reason to quit the government. She's had differences with the government over immigration policies, over the free trade agreement. She had expressed her differences with Liz Truss over the decision to reverse the corporation tax cut as promised by Liz Truss in the campaign. Liz Truss chose to go the Rishi Sunak way. Clearly, Braverman is distancing herself from this government. She does not want to be a part of it. And let's not forget, she had made a bid earlier to be Prime Minister herself. She had contested in that race. She was eliminated early. She could be preparing the ground for a comeback in an eventual race.
So
that may not be that far down the line.
Any front runners just yet to become the next Home Secretary of the UK? Sanjay, who are the front?
Well, it's
who are
not
the front
best
runners?
guide, but the bookies have been speculating. It's perhaps a little early to speculate that, but may not be too early given the pace at which this government is following all over the place and everything going topsy-turvy. But the bookies have placed bets on Rishi Sunak as the top runner, and this was recently. But these speculations and these calculations do change all the time. Others considered in the race have been Boris Johnson himself, Penny Mordaunt, who had also made a bid for the post of Prime Minister, and also Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary. All of these have been considered as possible replacements. Bookies are placing their bets on all of these.
Sanjay, so I want to come back to her letter and the reason that she's ostensibly cited for why she quit, which is that she sent an official document from a personal email ID to a trusted parliamentary colleague, which would constitute a breach of rules. She also says in that resignation letter that it is a technicality. Do you think that this is just a ruse? I mean, the real reason is that she perhaps fears that the Truss government might not last its full term, and therefore, by association, she might find it politically disadvantageous to her.
Well, it is a ruse. It is the most minor of technicalities. This, after all, as she says herself, is a trusted parliamentary colleague with whom she communicated using her personal email address. It's the sort of thing everyone does once in a way, perhaps inadvertently or without thinking that it is significant in any way. It certainly does not amount to a breach of any significance, let alone a serious breach. She seems to be doing two things. One, dropping away from this government. This government is now a much discredited government. Second, she could be preparing the ground for her to play a bigger role in a new government and possibly to head it. She may use this as the starting point to renew her ambitions to go for the post of Prime Minister herself.
And very quickly, she also goes on to say, and I quote, "I have concerns about the direction of this government." What may specifically be her concerns, and what may specifically be the direction that she's talking about?
Well, the minute she speaks of directions, we know that it wasn't the technicality that did it. She is concerned about the directions of this government. She has said so publicly in relation to two issues at the least. One, she opposed Liz Truss's now adoption of Rishi Sunak's policy on corporation tax. She said so publicly. Second, over the free trade agreement with India, she said that she opposes it. She in fact said that it could not go ahead as planned because it has inclusions about migration issues. And as Home Secretary, she is legitimately involved and concerned about that, and she must have a say on that. She, in effect, went against the government. The government, in effect, silenced her and told her that the free trade agreement, as being negotiated, is proceeding, and she spoke perhaps out of turn. She was told to be quiet about this, and she confirmed to senior Conservative members, as we reported, that she is now switching to support for the free trade agreement. But that is not to say that she was convinced that she was wrong earlier. She's had differences. She has expressed them. And now she's going her own way. The technicality was just the excuse.
It's been, what, barely a month and a half since this new government came into office. Last week you had the finance minister, the chancellor of the exchequer being asked to go. And now you have the home secretary leaving because of sending an email from a personal ID. But as Sanjay was pointing out, that seems more like a ruse. I think the larger reason why she has quit is because of the direction in which this government was moving, whether it's on migration, whether it's on the FTA purportedly that's been prepared with India. We'll see how the story plays out. For the moment, I want to thank Sanjay Suri. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, it'll be Brass Tacks Superfast.
तुम्हें क्या लगता है ये भेड़िए ने मुझे ही क्यों काटा है?
हो सकता है कि वो भेड़िया एक्चुअली तुम्हें मारना चाहता हो।
नहीं, क्यों?
क्योंकि तुम जिसे सियापा समझते हो ना, वो एक बहुत बड़ी जिम्मेदारी है।
मुझसे तो देखा नहीं जा रहा है।
मुझसे भी नहीं।
सेब समझ के चुत्तर चबा गया मेरे भाई का। लोगों को ऊंचा सुनाई देता है ना, मुझे नीचा सुनाई दे रहा है। खुशबू बदबू में बदल गई और बदबू खुशबू में।
जी, क्या कर रहा है?
इच्छाधारी भेड़िया। इच्छाधारी तो नागिन होती है।
क्यों? सिर्फ नागिन के पास लाइसेंस है क्या इच्छाधारी होने का?
आस्की के पॉटी में से किसी इंसान की हड्डी का अंश मिला।
कल रात को क्या खाया था?
प्रकाश के साथ खाना खाया था। हाँ, खाना खाया था।
जंगल में कांड हो गया।
आस्की, क्या छुपा रहे तुमसे? कुछ हुआ नहीं है मुझे।
हुआ है। मैं कह रहा हूँ ना, नहीं हुआ है कुछ।
जिसका डर था ना, वो शुरू हो गया।
मुझे पता नहीं है मैं हर रात क्या करता हूँ। मेरे बॉडी के अंदर भेड़िया घुस गया, भेड़िया। रामपुरी चाकू जैसे नाखून निकलते और ड्रैकुला जैसे दांत। मेरी ना लिटरली फटती है और फट के ना पीछे से पूंछ निकलती है। ये साले कुत्ते ना मुझे फूफा जी कह के चढ़ाते हैं।
मेरा इलाज नहीं हुआ ना तो मैं लोगों को खाता फिरूंगा। भेड़िए से काटा हुआ इंसान फिर से नॉर्मल कैसे हो सकता है?
दिस इज इम्पॉसिबल।
यही चड्डी पहन के कल रात को फूल खिलाता। एकदम पीछे से फटी हो गई थी।